I was moving a lot slower, so for them to run at my pace and hike, they were able to do it. But the longest through hiker, his name was Karaoke. I don't know if any.
Yes, I know karaoke. Oh, froze.
Pretty amazing. So.
All right. Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Go ahead.
Hi Scott, I'm Dave.
Hey.
I was wondering, before you started this, did you have some idea of, like you broke the record by 3 hours, but I was wondering if you actually had like some, time frame in mind well beyond that?
Yeah, so I was trying to be very optimistic, and some people did hear, because I did want to say roughly what I was shooting for. So some people did hear the 42, 43 day range is kind of what I was shooting for, and a lot of people look at that, and even my buddy Carl, who's an ultra runner, he was like, Jen's record is stout. When he came out, he was like, you're dreaming. And I knew it was like, it was pie in the sky if everything goes great. And if I hadn't lost the time in the South, in Virginia, Tennessee and North Carolina is where I had the knee injury. If I hadn't lost time there, and I, maybe didn't lose as much sleep in New Hampshire, and I made a couple of errors. When the last gentleman was just asking me about what errors or what things would I change, I probably would have done a little bit shorter days in New Hampshire and actually in Vermont. Vermont was, anybody who hiked Vermont this year, it was one of the wettest they've ever seen in 300 years. And you can't control those things, and I think that's what's cool about the Appalachian Trail. For me, if everything went well, I may be 43, 44. I know somebody can go 43, 44 if everything goes right. And that's what I love about the records and people setting the bar high, just like Heather Anderson has set another bar high for self-supported. And I think it's a fascinating thing. So yeah, that was my goal. And again, everything had to go right.
I had one more question. I believe that the Angeles Crest, we were talking about like management of these races and the popularity growing. I believe the Angeles Crest 100 requires entrants to do trail work. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, you bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was talking with David Horton. Or do you have a question regarding that? Or?
Well, just wondering if you think like other races should institute that. I mean, it seems like a great way to give back to the trail. You are having an impact on it. And I come from a maintaining kind of frame of mind. I work on the Pacific Crest Trail. So just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I'm one of those crazy trail runners who loves trail work, and I've been working on the trails with the WTA up in Washington for years, and the Issaquah Alps group, and I am 100% behind it. And actually, a lot of races do require it. Wasatch 100, the Western States 100, and interestingly enough, throughout the years before the Western States 100, a week and a half before the race, I would actually go out on the trail and help some other ultra runners do trail work. So you can imagine I'm like trying to win this race, and now they're doing trail work. But it's a great workout, and I think it's a great way to build the community, both from the hiking and the trail running side. So strongly agree with you on that. And yeah, I want to thank you for all your work. And I wish more land management agencies allowed us to do more work. For instance, I live out here in Boulder, and they're really picky about the hiking and trail running groups doing their own trail work. It's like got to be done by the agency. So I think we got to foster, good relationships and really build strong clubs that, like the Appalachian Trail, they're out there, doing that work. But totally agree with you. In fact, I've talked to David Horton about maybe coming out and doing some work on the AT. It's a long way to travel, but again, we have the Colorado Trail and the Continental Divide Trail. But I'm a firm believer in trail work. It's so rewarding too. It's a great workout, and to see the trail after you've worked on it is pretty phenomenal. Yeah. And there's a few sections on that AT trail that can be worked a little bit. I know some of the clubs like to make it tough.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hey Scott, my name is Lyric. I'm
Steve.
currently on a southbound hike, so before you say that I better hurry, I hear it every day and I'm well aware.
You got time.
Yeah, right. And thank you for the spider web help. We appreciate that. I got more of a comment, I guess.
Yeah.
You've touched on it, and you've talked about what you might do differently, maybe not stopping to so many hikers. to talk and hang out. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know who you were before this trail, and a lot of us didn't, and we know who you are, and honestly didn't really give a damn because I didn't know what you were into or whatever. And then I started following you, and I know a lot of other hikers did because of your willingness to hang out and your personality. So just wanted to kind of say thanks, because
Oh, well, thank you.
a lot of people on the trail know who you are because you did stuff like that. So
Well, like I said, you guys provide a lot of motivation. I mean, the coolest thing, it wasn't just hanging out. I mean, I wish I could have had a beer and hung out longer at some of the the trail intersections, as well as just hanging out with some of the thru hikers. But for me, it was the constant encouragement and just the community out there on the trail. I mean, a lot of people assume I was just blazing by, but I'd come by tents at night at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. It'd be dark, and a thru hiker would be hollering out like, "Is that Scott Jurek?" And say, yeah, and they'd be hollering out and just give a cheer. And some people would come out from a shelter in the pouring rain and hike for a while, and they just wanted to find out about my experience, and I loved sharing those interactions. So I just want to thank you guys too, and gals who are out there. You really provided a lot of motivation, and I'm thinking to myself, going through some of the sections, like, these guys have these heavy packs on their back, trying to get through the Mahoosuc Notch, and just had a ton of respect, as well as, like I mentioned, Karaoke, who joined me for 18 miles, he was like laying over, and he said he was going to need a whole bottle of Advil that night, but he was like, I just had a wonderful experience, and I shared so many of that same sentiment out there. So,
well, that's really cool, man, and yeah, that's just wanted to let you know that's the name. If not at Baxter, the rest of the trail likes you.
Oh, well, I know it was. I mean, that's the thing too, is we're all enjoying the trail, and I think that's where a through hiker runner who's trying to set a record can still have an experience. And I think that's what the beauty of it. And I think going northbound was the best way to do that. And like I said, I wouldn't change a thing, but if I was really thinking speed, I'd go southbound for sure.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have been able to hang out as much. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. I don't know if I passed you. I think I was in the 100-mile when I heard we're going to pass Scott today. I might have been in the woods taking care of business or something.
Oh, I know, that's right. I can hear from hikers. They're like, hey, so-and-so wants to meet you, but they went into town, or like, I missed a few people. But yeah, what day did you start?
I started June 12th. I got off for a few weeks, so I've been back on for about 3 weeks now. So.
All right. Well, you're gonna get it done.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott.
Snowfall, right? And Smokies.
Any other questions? So, cool.
My question too is what advice you'd have for trail builders in long distance running, and then also if you'd think that anybody attempting a record in the future should have GPS, if there should be a standardization or check for it.
Sure. Great question. I'll comment on the first one, or the second one first. I just think it's the most transparent. Things are so lightweight now. I carried one of the basically the InReach DeLorme Explorer units, and they're 6 ounces, so some people are really weight conscious are maybe not going to carry that level of GPS, but the spot trackers, they've gotten light to the point where they're 3-4 ounces. So I feel like it is an investment, but if you really want transparency, it's the best. A few times I had to charge the DeLorme, so it ended up in my crew vehicle, and it started going down roads, and people were following it so meticulously that they were like, oh, looks like you got in a car for a while there. So that's the level of people we're watching, where I was, crossing the trail. And again, I was following David Horton's method of always, basically, I would leave and come back on the trail at the same spot. That's how picky some of the FKT folks are. So definitely following that at a super high level. So I think definitely there needs to be transparency. But again, it's like, do people want to take the technology? As far as trail building, were you asking trail building for runners or all users?
From a runner's standpoint.
Yeah, the biggest thing for trail runners, we can get used to the technical, rocks and stuff, but I feel like the grade of the AT, for instance, and this is, I think, maybe at least the old legend goes that all the different clubs built the trail so that it would be the hardest section, and they all had this competition going. So you can see where they decided to go straight up a hill, and when you know, I've worked on trails out west. Everything's all about grading things for erosion, and I feel like the AT for running becomes very difficult because it just goes straight up. There's not a lot of switchbacks, hardly any. And so when you see down in the south, for instance, like Virginia, North Carolina, in Tennessee and Georgia, they're starting to switch back the trail in areas. And I know it's starting to happen, but I don't know if we'll see that in New Hampshire and Maine. But the biggest thing is getting the grade at a little bit more gentle slope for conducive to running is the biggest thing. But again, it's the AT and it's the East Coast. But as far as out west, we see a lot of trails. They're great for horses, but they're also great for runners. And then of course they're great for mountain bikers, so everybody wants to use them. That's the trouble. It's the good and bad of making something more graded.
So when you come to the East Coast for the trail work, you can build some switchbacks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to change. I don't want to change the AT. I'm not coming out there, you know, to change the AT. But which section do you maintain, or where do you work most?
In New York.
In New York, yeah. And one thing, I was blown away with New Jersey and New York as far as how difficult. And I did love the variety. You need to get on these slabs of rock and just huge boulders, and I was always blown away. And just in terms of the terrain there. So, in fact, I saw the most rattlesnakes I ever saw in New York. So, yeah. Well, thanks for your work. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, man. Did you go swimming much?
I did. That was the other thing too. Like I would jump in creeks, lakes. I did from time to time, depending on how full of leeches they were. That was one thing. I'm from northern Minnesota, so I know certain ponds and lakes, like you don't get in the water unless you want tons of leeches on you. But yeah, I tried to cool myself off as much as possible, particularly in the south, where it was the hottest for me. In Virginia, it was really hot. So, and that's the key thing too. I want to stress is. I think with trail runners, there are some rude ones out there who are all about speed, but I always try to be super friendly to hikers, say hello, say good morning, you know, just, you know, let the hiker know that I'm out there. So I think from a communication standpoint, the biggest thing with trail runners, we are sometimes moving faster and just giving people warning and being courteous. And there's always a few bad apples out there, but I think we can all enjoy the woods and the trails and all get along and have a great experience. So, in fact, a lot of hikers are runners and runners are hikers, and that's the biggest thing I think we consume. In fact, a lot of people ask me now, you know, what am I looking forward to? And I'm just looking forward to doing some more backpacking and hiking at a more leisurely pace with no time clock on me and record basically after me. So now's the time for me to just go a little easier.
You have another question? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a friend who's he's 52 and he's thinking about trail running the Appalachian Trail, so he's a little bit older too. I mean, older than you obviously. But what advice would you give him? He does some trail running and he's very fast at running half marathons and stuff like that.
Sure.
And he does some trail running in Tennessee and stuff like that, but nothing to this extent. What advice would you give someone like that that's that age?
I would strongly encourage them to get their power walking up to speed, meaning like spend a lot of time hiking and power walking. I think the AT is full of hiking, and it doesn't really matter the age. I mean, that's one thing. I had the pleasure of meeting the oldest woman to through hike who hiked it last year. She's 74. So somebody who
just had lunch with her. She's here.
Yeah. What's that?
She's
You
here,
just had
actually.
lunch with her.
Oh, she's in the
She's
She's
here
here.
right now. Yeah.
Oh, there, yeah. I came across her, I believe it was in Pennsylvania, along with a woman, a through hiker who was hiking for a veterans suicide awareness group. So anyways, I get a lot of inspiration from those individuals. So somebody who's in their 50s, I tell them, work on your power walking. And I would say go out for some 2 or 3 day backpack and lightweight backpacking trips where you spend a lot of time hiking up and down the mountains to prepare yourself for something like the AT. Because it's not like just running, unless you just do 20-mile days or 15-mile days. But if you're trying to put in really big days, you've got to learn how to hike and power walk efficiently would be the biggest thing. And eating and drinking and organizing, I mean, it's as much as logistics as through hikers know. You got to know where you're going to get your food, and depending on how supported he's going to be, you got to figure that solution out. So it's the strategy and organization of food and hydration. I used a filter, basically one of those Sawyer filters, and filtered my water. But food was something that I was always, needing resupply for.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, tell him you should go for it.
I will.
Just so Scott, you said that you we're carrying a GPS. What else is on you on a daily basis?